Hello, good morning. It's Grace and another day in paradise. Good morning from Thailand, Chiang Mai. The beginning of the rainy season, it's becoming some very nice riding weather already. Say hello, let me know if you have any questions. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I did have a topic in mind for this morning, which is the situation with my starter clutch on my CRF450 RL, which is a very new bike. It's only the 2022 CRF450 RL. I just bought it last year. It's only got a few thousand kilometers on it. Fortunately, it is still under warranty. So that is excellent because, the last couple of months, I was noticing that it was getting harder and harder to start. And, previously, if I was on my old KTM 690 or something like that, I would be thinking, I better go and check my rocker arms and my valve clearances because the 690 is notorious for having problems with that. The bearings in your rocker arms, those roller bearings, they tend to fail quite frequently because the top end of the engine doesn't really get adequate lubrication. So I digress. That's the situation with the KTM 690 Enduro. So I'm always hyper vigilant about that. But of course, with the CRF450, it's only a 2022. It's less than a year old. Oh, not 2022, 2023. See, I don't even know what year it is. I don't know what year it is now, let alone what year it was then. Anyway, I do know how old my bike is, and I know it's less than a year old, which is excellent because it's still under warranty. So anyway, I noticed it was getting harder to start. And then it got to a point where it just wasn't going to start for me. So I took it back down to Honda and I said, listen, what's going on with this lovely brand new bike that I bought from you? Don't you really think it ought to start when I hit the starter button? And at first I was thinking, is there just a bad connection in there? But really, you could tell that the engine wasn't turning over properly. So anyway, it turns out that the culprit was the sprag clutch. So your starter clutch, your one-way bearing inside there, which engages with your starter motor and enables you to turn over your engine before letting go once the engine starts. That's probably a very bad explanation of it. I do actually know what one of these looks like outside of the bike because I've also replaced this part on my 690 Enduro. And I think, the whole common ground there being that these are big bore singles. So 690cc single, 450cc single. There's a lot of weight in the engine that starter motor and that one-way bearing is trying to get to turn over. Now, so I went down to Honda and I said, listen, I got this problem. And I could see on the forums that I certainly wasn't the first person to have this problem. And I said, what's the deal? And they said, well, it's your sprag clutch, it's your one-way bearing, and we need to replace it. And I said, well, what's the cause? With 3,500 kilometers on the bike, shouldn't be doing this. And the tech said to me, he said, well, one of the problems is that some of the because the bike is very restricted for emissions and homologation purposes. And one of the things you notice when you get, say, the Thai version of the CRF450 RL is that the air intake is tiny. So you have this great big airbox, and then you have this tiny, tiny restricted air intake. And so one of the main mods that you do when you get this bike is you change out the exhaust for a more open aftermarket exhaust. You get an ECU and remap it because obviously you want to de-restrict it so you can get back all that horsepower that you've lost for emissions purposes. And you change this air intake, which is really just, it's just a little piece of plastic. You have the small restricted one, you put a really big one on it, and then suddenly your engine can breathe again. Now, this is something that I've been planning to do, but because I haven't yet got my hands on the Dream exhaust to upgrade, I haven't changed my ECU and I haven't made that air intake change. And the technician, he said, well, one of the reasons that it's, that your starter motor and your Sprag clutch is working so hard is because the engine's so restricted because, among other things, this small air intake. And so it's really got to work really hard to drag the air through there and turn over the engine. And that's why we keep seeing the starter clutch and the Sprag clutch bearings failing. And so his recommendation was, no worries, we'll fix it under warranty, but we're also going to replace the air intake for the big one so that my starter motor and Sprag clutch don't have to work so hard anymore, so I don't have this happening again. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, so that came from Honda. I am not at all sure that this is the officially sanctioned line. I'm not sure if that's what the tech was supposed to tell me, but that's certainly what he told me, and that's what we're doing. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting point, and certainly something that new owners of the 450, if they have the restricted model, they haven't de-restricted it yet, they should be aware of this. So yeah, even if you haven't, got around to remapping and putting a flash exhaust on it so that you can go fast and do wheelies, you may still be wanting to fix the air intake situation so that you don't find yourself needing a very expensive one-way bearing after a year or so. So that's the story of the CRF450. Hello, good morning, everybody. Got Gary, Jonathan, Clinton. How are my beautiful people this morning? Clinton, please don't try and keep quiet. I am here for the conversation and the banter. So please make as much noise as you wish. It's yeah, I'm on my second cup of coffee, so soon I'll actually be firing on all cylinders. And yeah, you can ask me as many questions as you like. How is everyone? How is the weather? Have you all been out riding? I know it's probably, Friday night in the States at the moment. So I guess you should be planning your weekend expeditions now. What month is it? What season? Hey, so it's the beginning of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, which is boding well for your riding, right? I hope everybody's got lots of plans. As you know, I have plans. I'm going to go to Mongolia and ride across the steppes on a KTM 450, which is going to make me very, very happy. It's already making me happy just thinking about the prospect. It will be super nice to be out there and camping again. I've got my Moscow Moto gear. I've got my Reckless 80. And yes, I'll be strapping that onto the 450 and we'll be heading for the steppes. And I cannot wait. You know that Mongolian metal band. I don't know really how to say their name. But there's that song Juve Juve. And yeah, whenever I think of Mongolia, I have this soundtrack playing in my head. So hopefully when I go to Mongolia, it's going to be populated sparsely, but populated by very attractive Mongolian warriors who can also sing and play metal. So this sounds pretty good to me. I'll let you know if I find what I'm looking for. Jonathan, you're going riding this weekend. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, as you should. Is it a 2-dayer? Are you heading out somewhere and then sadly coming back on the Sunday, or just a couple of day trips? Fill us in and tell us where you're riding as well. Where are you riding and what are you riding, so that we can live vicariously through you? Speaking of living vicariously through people, I am pretty close to getting back on the enduro bike. I did actually get on my KLX the other day. I was wearing high heels and my office clothes, to be fair, but I still managed to ride it down the street to see my fellow mechanic King, and because it's the engine on the KLXs, on the KLX 230s, the engine, it doesn't sound like it's not like smooth like butter like a Honda engine, right? They sound like kind of scratchy, and if you're not used to this, Kawasaki dirt bike sound, it can be disconcerting. And so yeah, every now and then I'm like, oh, it sounds a little scratchy. And so I went down to King and I was like, does this sound like normal scratchy to you, or does this sound like problematic scratchy to you? And he was like, no, sounds like totally normal scratchy. And so I was happy. So I got back on my bike in my high heels and fanged back along the road. And my mind was put at ease. So Jonathan is going camping one night and then a group ride in Ohio on your T-Jet, on your Tenere 700. Very nice. Here in Thailand, we call it the T-Jet, which I think has a nice little ring to it. Obviously, jet is Thai for 7. But yeah, your T-Jet, you're off on your T-Jet. Very nice indeed. Well, that should be comfortable and fun. I am suitably jealous. Although I guess my physio and my surgeon probably wouldn't recommend me picking up a Tenere 700 at this point, so I probably better stick to my lightweight dirt bikes and probably try not to end up upside down too soon into my resumed riding career. But yeah, so we have a tour coming up. We had a really nice tour just the other day, and what was really cool is I love it when we get, like, that was a couple and they were just like the nicest people, and both of them had experience riding big bikes. They had experience, riding on the road, but not a lot of off-road experience. In her case, though, she grew up in Thailand and she grew up, riding around on the village tracks in Thailand. And I reckon that, yeah, kids who grew up in the village and have to ride around some of those gnarly little single tracks on their scooters with, 3 friends on the back and a lollipop in the hand, those kids, they got mad skills. So I said to her, it's all going to come back to you. Don't worry, you're going to love it. And sure enough, she absolutely killed it. she was so stoked at the end as well, because she never fell off the whole time, and just absolutely killed it on a dirt bike. She got off and she was like, wow, this was my dream. And her husband said, this was your dream? I thought this was my dream. And she was like, oh no, this was my dream, but I forgot for a while, but now I remember. So I'm happy to see the dreams coming back to life. Clinton. Ooh. Clinton tells us that we just had a wonderful sunset and that he's supposed to head to Barnwell to cut firewood, but no riding. I don't approve, Clinton. You must go and cut firewood for sure, but you must also ride, because, all right, let's be serious. How else are you going to know where the good firewood is if you don't ride around on your dirt bike and find out? It's reconnaissance. It's completely legit. So, I think you should integrate that into your firewood plan. Hassan is asking Jonathan whether he finds the Tenere 700s an improvement from the 660Z. I would hope so, but I actually have not ridden the 660, so I can't comment on that. I'm keen to hear what Jonathan says. So apparently loving it. Definitely heavier than a dirt bike by a lot, for sure, but very capable considering the size. No frills, but everything he needs and nothing he doesn't. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the Tenere it's definitely not a dirt bike. It's definitely an adventure bike, but it is dirt capable. There are people here who really like ride enduro on their Teneres here. which I think looks like hard work, but they seem to be having fun, so good for them. But yeah, the Tenere it's a big adventure bike, but as you say, no frills. It's not like buying a new GS, which is basically going to come with an espresso maker and a personal assistant, or maybe an AI personal assistant. But I was actually in BMW the other day. I was looking at the new 1300, and it looks like a beautiful bike, but my lord, the technology on that, can you imagine like breaking down in the desert, and you just look at your bike and your bike looks at you, and the bike says, error, fault code, please go to the dealership, and you're 3,000 kilometers from the nearest dealership, and what do you do? So yeah, there's certainly a lot to be said for keeping it simple, and getting a bike that has all the stuff you need and none of the stuff you don't, for sure. Oh, Eric's here. Hello, Eric. How you doing? Very nice to see you. Yeah, that's right. So Clinton's down in Edisto and Barnwell, right? So South Carolina, if I've got my US states correct. I hear that there is riding there, but there aren't hills like in northern Thailand. Clinton was rather impressed by the rather vertical nature of our trails here, which I understand is not the norm in his neck of the woods. So I see. You're saying the bike's in a disto, so you can't ride it in Barnwell. Well, there's a solution for that. We can fix these problems. We can fix all of these problems. So what's Jonathan telling us now? That there was a huge benefit for him on the Tenere. Yeah, that it's simple and it hasn't let you down. For sure, that just keeping things simple. Like for me as well, my 690 Enduro, the one that I rode, across from Australia all the way up to here for about 3.5 years, I specifically picked the 2012 because it was 2013 that they sort of went next gen and they did a bunch of upgrades, and one of them was ABS, and I was like, I want to keep it as simple as possible. I don't want to have an ABS sensor that I can interfere with when I'm trying to change my tire in a desert. I don't want things that I'm going to break and not know how to fix. So yeah, I just so the 2012. I mean, it's very different from the new generation of 690 Enduro and 701 and the Gas 700. I mean, they're all basically the same bike, but yeah, they're now very, very smooth, lovely bikes. They've figured out the whole counterbalancing in the engine and that sort of thing. Whereas the 2012 is very much a tractor. If you don't like vibration, you're not going to enjoy my bike. It's a thumper, and it lets just thump, 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 massive vibration. But it kicks like a mule. It's a great bike. I really love it. I was riding it just the other day, and every time I get on this bike, I have a little collection. Every time I get on it though, I think, damn, this is a good bike. Every bike is a compromise. No bike does everything perfectly, but the 690 gives you joy in more than one area, which is kind of rare. I mean, because you get on this bike and you can do single track on it and really enjoy yourself, but at the same time you pull out into the traffic and hit the throttle and it goes. It really goes. So yeah, the same cannot be said for my KLX 230. Bless its cotton socks. Clinton is telling us he was quite comfortable on the T7 in Moab until falling over the first time, the second time, and all the other times. Yes, trying to pick up a Tenere 700, particularly on your own with in sand or in sand or mud, that's a job. One of my friends here has a Tenere 700, and it had been raining, and he decided he wanted to come, do some off-road riding with us. So Pilar and I, we got on our dirt bikes, and our friend Boom, he got on his brand new Tenere 700. And oh my lord, the three of us, we spent the day picking up that bike. And it was a good workout. It was a good workout for sure. We didn't need to go to the gym after that. The Tenere, I think it's pretty top heavy, so it can be, and unlike a GS with the boxer engine, it falls all the way over. So actually getting it past that point of no return when you're lifting it is quite the challenge. So that's what you need friends for sure. That's correct. Yes. So the T7, it's a good bike as long as you've got a bunch of strong friends to lift you up out of the sand. Dropping bikes at gas stations, though, we've all been there. We've all done that for sure. Yeah, when I first loaded up my 690 Enduro, and was like, on my way with this big trip, and I strapped my whole life to the back of that bike. And so I had so much gear on this bike, and I just wasn't used to carrying that much weight on it. And I also wasn't used to how wide it made the bike, because I was running side racks, and then I had the giant loop panniers. They're round the world panniers, which are really big. They're what, 35, 40 liters each side. Anyway, so it made the bike super wide, and I didn't realize how wide my load was when the first time I pulled into the petrol station, and I accidentally touched, this pole as I came past it with my pannier, and of course that started pushing me over, and the bike is so heavy, and I'm starting to lose the battle. When you put your foot down and you think, I can hold it. And I had all this gear on the bike. I must have looked ridiculous, and it was just starting to go down, and I was like panicking because I thought, oh my God, I'll never be able to pick it up again. And I'm just slowly falling over next to this pole, and there's this truck driver, who's just fueling up, and he's just like watching me, and I look at him and I'm like, oh, help me. And he's like, what is going on? But anyway, he comes over and just like helps me ease the bike past this pole without actually falling over. And I'm like sweating bullets. And I mean, looking, back in the context of all the stupid things I've done on motorbikes since then, this is like such a complete non-event. But at the time, it felt like it really almost like shook my confidence. I had this idea that I could go and ride around the world on my own, and everyone said, you can't do it because you're just a woman, you're not strong enough, you're not a mechanic, you don't understand enough. And so, I tried to ignore that, but there's a part of you that always hears things that are going to undermine your confidence, even if you choose not to make that the focus of your thinking. So yeah, there was this thought in my head, oh, maybe they're all right. Maybe I'm going to just fall over here in the middle of the service station, and everyone's going to be right that I'm just this silly woman who's not strong enough to go and do this trip on my own. But anyway, it turns out that we all fall over in gas stations sometimes. Well, most of us do. And we fall over in stupid places, and we do stupid things. And it's completely unrelated to our overall ability to do cool shit and overcome adversity. So yeah, that was a lesson I learned eventually along the way. You don't have to be perfect, but as long as you keep getting up every time you fall down, you'll figure it out one way or the other. Yeah, like Jonathan says, the T7 goes straight flat down on the ground, and you have to. It's leg day, you really got to put your legs into it, not your back, as much as the expression goes. And yeah, definitely a massive power squat is required to get that bike off the ground. And the 690 as well. Not a heavy bike, way lighter than the Tenere 700, but it's tall, and again, it lays flat on the ground. So yeah, you do have to think about your leverage points a bit with that one, and make sure you don't have it on the wrong kind of slope. Otherwise, that can be quite challenging if you've already fallen over 3 or 4 times in the day and you're a bit tired. For sure. So yeah, but this is normal. Something that was said to me when I first started, becoming obsessed with motorcycles, and I first went riding with a group. Somebody in Australia, they said to me, because the groups would always meet at the fuel stations, in the Australian vernacular, we'd say at the servo, so the service station where you get the fuel and such like. I guess it's a gas station, or I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. So we're going to meet at the servo. We always do. And you find this person, they said to me, they saw me like sitting in the gutter at the service station. And they said to me, now that you ride motorbikes, you're going to find that a lot of the important events in your life are going to happen at gas stations. And I didn't think so much about it at the time, but it's true. It's true. Gas stations become an epic part of your motorcycling life. So yeah. Anyway, that's my exposition on how we all fall over in gas stations, or otherwise look pretty silly sometimes, and we really probably shouldn't pay attention to it. Clinton wants to know, what was the energy drink that I gave him? Oh yes, so when I lead tours and I go out on these group rides, I always make sure I take energy drinks in my backpack, because sometimes, after people have fallen down a lot of times, they just run out of energy. And you're on the mountain, there's no helicopter coming to get you, so we got to know how to raise people from the dead and get them back on the bike. And for that, I use a Thai energy drink called M150, which is M150. And M150, it's a lot cheaper than Red Bull. It doesn't have the political and socio-political complications of Red Bull here. So yeah, M150 will raise you from the dead. That combination of sugar, caffeine, guarana, taurine, and I don't know what else is in there. And that's part of the magic. It could be anything in there. But whatever it is, you see people collapsed on the ground, looking at the sky, saying, I cannot go on. And I pull out my little bottle of M150 and I say, drink this. You're going to be fine. Give them 5-10 minutes. Off you go. So yeah, that's what I gave you, Clinton, to bring you back from the dead and get that mojo happening again when you're tired. Jonathan, random KLX question. Weight difference. What's the weight difference between the stainless exhaust and the titanium? And is there any adjustment difference required over the stock exhaust? So to answer the second question first, you can run the high volt exhausts, the aftermarket high volt exhausts on your KLX 230 without remapping. You're going to get the best results if you remap for the new exhaust, because you're going to be increasing the airflow. It's an unrestricted open exhaust. But you don't have to do that. Now, the KLX 230 is a little bit of a pain because Kawasaki have locked down the ECU. So unless you have the dealership equipment, you cannot just go and remap or retune your ECU. So for that, you need to put a different ECU on the bike. There's a couple of options. One of the options is the full stand next ECU, which is the one that I sell. It's made in Thailand. You can tune using your smartphone. Another option is you can just put like an old Honda ECU on the bike and tune that instead. Anyway, so yeah, you don't have to remap for the aftermarket exhaust, but for optimal results, you should. Also, if you add something extra like the velocity stack on your airbox, this is also going to increase your airflow. So if you do that, you do the velocity stack plus the open exhaust, then you will need to remap, because if you run both of those together, the airflow is going to increase so much that your bike is going to end up way too lean, and you need to remap. So yeah. All right, first question, weight difference between stainless and titanium. The answer is several kilograms. Let me find out how many kilograms I have. I do need to weigh them again, but it is significant. I will weigh them again because I don't have the exact weight for the stainless to compare to the titanium just now. So what I'll do is I'll weigh them again, and I'll put up a post with the exact weights, and you can compare the full system of each. Yeah, so the stainless is lighter than stock, but then the titanium obviously is light as a dream. Light as a dream. Clinton's telling me that 62-year-olds don't do energy drinks, but it worked. It does work. I mean, look, it's probably not good if you have many energy drinks all the time, but every now and then when you need to get off a mountain, you need a bit of a kick to get you off the mountain and back home, then yeah, sometimes break glass in case of emergency. For sure. Speaking about comparisons between the exhaust weights, just as an example, I know, for example, when I make the titanium versus the stainless exhaust for the CRF300, the weight difference between the titanium and the stainless is about, it's a little under 1.5 kilos, which doesn't sound like so much, but it definitely adds up. Yeah. So yeah, no need to remap, but best results with remapping. Other options you have as well, when you install the aftermarket exhaust, you're going to hear the popping on deceleration, like a little bit of popping and backfiring on deceleration. If you still have your EGR AAS pair valve system on the bike, this has been going on with your stock exhaust, but the stock exhaust is so muffled, you're not going to notice that sound. Whereas you put the aftermarket exhaust on the bike, and suddenly you can hear this crackling, popping sound when you decelerate all the time. And I actually kind of like that sound. A lot of people don't. And if you want to get rid of it, you can just delete your whole EGR AIS pair valve system. I don't, like I said, I don't mind that sound on deceleration, but I have deleted my EGR, my pair valve, my AIS. I don't know what people want to call it. Let's just call it a pair valve for the moment. And I did that because it also lets you save a little bit of weight, and I'm, always about peeling a few 100 grams off the bike if I can. So yeah, you just remove the pair valve, and some bikes, like not all, but depending on the jurisdiction your bike was sold in, some of them also have a charcoal canister, which is part of that emissions equipment. For example, California bikes will have the charcoal canister. Arkansas bikes will not have the charcoal canister. Thai bikes will have the charcoal canister. So yeah, if you have the charcoal canister, delete that one as well. And that's, again, a little bit more weight saving. And you're just sort of pulling all this crap off the top of your engine. So, you're just sort of clearing out something that you're not really using. And yeah, so I sell the pair valve delete kit. It's got a block off plate to go on your engine there, and then you just pull out everything that's attached. So you pull out the EGR, and you've got a sensor there. So I supply a sensor plug in that sensor plug. It's a little bypass plug so that you're not going to get a check engine light. And then also keep pulling everything off. You're going to get to your charcoal canister. There's a sensor there as well. So if you have the charcoal canister, you're going to have a second sensor. So plug in the second bypass plug into that sensor. Again, avoid your check engine light. And yeah, then you can basically throw all your emission stuff in the bin, or keep it if you need to pass a compliance inspection in the future. But yeah, so that will deal with that popping sound on deceleration if it's annoying you. And it'll also just let you pull some more bits off the bike that you're not using. Some people talk about, oh, it's going to give you extra horsepower and stuff. I don't think, look, if it made any difference at all in horsepower, I think it would be a very, very small difference. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but every little bit helps. Yeah. So when I install the exhaust, that's what I normally do. So I would install the aftermarket exhaust with the pair valve delete. I keep my oxygen sensor. I know that Kawasaki Brad does a O2 block off, like the bypass plug, so that you can delete your O2 sensor without getting a check engine light. I actually like to keep my O2 sensor, especially if you're tuning later on. If you're going to put the ECU on and tune, you want to have that information for your ECU to use. So yeah, my aftermarket pipes, they include the attachment, so you can plug your O2 sensor back into that. But some people choose to delete it, so that's an option as well. So EGR delete with the aftermarket exhaust. I also recommend grabbing a heat shield to go across the power bomb part of the exhaust, which is down by your right ankle, sort of right calf, right ankle, because it's gets super hot down there. If you lean your leg in against the header pipe, you're going to toast it. So yeah, I sell a little heat shield guard that's specially designed to go over the power bomb, because the stock heat shield guard won't go over the power bomb. It's the power bomb sticks out too much. So yeah, so just your little aluminium heat shield there. And obviously I always run it with the manual idle adjustment screw. Because, well, I mean, basically the automatic idle is as erratic as it is anyway. And so as soon as you put an aftermarket exhaust and you're sort of changing some of those parameters under which the engine's operating, you want to keep things as far from erratic as you can. So yeah, I always run my KLX with the manual idle adjustment screw. Yeah, which is the case, regardless of whether you want to remap with a new ECU or not. Clinton, have a lovely day. I hope you have a nice day chopping firewood, but I also hope that you bring the bike over so that you can go and look for more firewood, ostensibly, on the bike. Because I'm a fan of big expeditions on motorbikes. Reconnaissance, you've got to do it. Very important, very important. Find an excuse wherever you can. Yeah, so that's my little exposition on the aftermarket exhaust. The titanium is so pretty though. Oh my gosh, I love it. Also, they all come with a mesh spark arrestor, which I believe is quite important in the US. So they have a good mesh spark arrestor. They're also going to come with a decibel killer, which just you can just pull it out of the muffler or not, depending on your preference. If you want to keep it a little bit quiet, put that decibel killer in. But it's gonna smooth out your throttle response a bit. If you want the throttle response to be really, really crisp, and you want maximum power, then leave that decibel killer out. You're going to sound obnoxious, but it's all about performance, right? So yeah, so there's an option there as well. Depends how much you want your neighbors to hate you or not. Yeah, so that's. I'll stop talking about KLX 230 exhausts, but it is a topic close to my heart. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't know if you can see just over my shoulder on the top shelf. You can see the light glinting off my my little pile of exhausts in titanium and stainless. Honestly, the titanium is so light and so nice that I think once you go titanium, you can't go back. For my CRF450, I'm also going to get my fabricator to make a titanium exhaust as well. I've decided that's the way to go. I'm going to engineer something which will do the job of a Yoshi, which is not going to cost me Yoshi money because, unfortunately, we are not all made of money. Well, especially not if we keep buying bike parts. So, you know, that's life. This is the life for which we've signed up, is spending all our money on bike parts and being happy. So, on that note, I think I'm going to let you enjoy your evening, and I'm going to have another coffee, and I'm going to do some work, and I'm going to send off some more dirt bike parts, and I'm going to keep planning the next adventure. Alrighty, so if there's nothing else, I'm heading off. Have a wonderful night, a wonderful weekend. It's a long weekend here in Thailand. I'm not sure if it is in other parts of the world, but yeah, enjoy yourselves and ride your motorbikes. Bye.